It's 2 a.m., your phone is face down on your nightstand, and you've been staring at the ceiling for the last hour telling yourself you're not going to check it. And then it happens. The screen lights up. Their name. After 3 days of complete silence. Your heart doesn't just race, it sprints. You grab the phone so fast you nearly knock over your water glass. You read the message twice. It's casual. Maybe even a little flirty. Like nothing happened. Like they weren't just a ghost for the last 72 hours while you were quietly falling apart. And here's the part that really gets you. You write back immediately. No waiting. No playing it cool. Because in that one glowing moment, none of the silence matters anymore. You are just relieved. You are just happy. So why does this keep happening? Why does someone who treats you like a priority one day and a stranger the next somehow have more power over you than anyone who's ever been consistently kind? Why does the uncertainty make you crave them more, not less? That answer isn't just about them. It runs deeper than bad timing or mixed feelings or they're just not good at texting. There's a psychological mechanism at work, one that's been shaping human relationships for decades, and by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly what's happening inside your mind, why it feels so impossible to walk away, and what you can actually do to break free from it for good. Stay with me. This one is going to change how you see everything. Let's start by naming the thing that's draining you, because it deserves a real definition. Hot and cold isn't just a Taylor Swift song, it's one of the most quietly destructive patterns in modern dating, and it's everywhere right now. Here's what it looks like in the 2020s. You match with someone on Hinge or Bumble. The conversation is electric. They're attentive, funny, asking all the right questions. You go on a couple of dates and it feels like something real is forming. Then, without any warning, without any fight, without any reason you can identify, they just pull back. The texts slow down. The plans get vague. You're left in this uncomfortable limbo where you don't know if you're being ghosted or if they're just busy. And then they come back. Warm, enthusiastic, full of energy. And the cycle starts again. Studies show that nearly 60% of young adults in the United States report experiencing significant distress from mixed signals during the early stages of dating. That's not a small number. That's the majority of people in your age group quietly exhausted by the same pattern, scrolling through their messages, trying to decode someone's behavior like it's a puzzle with missing pieces. Quick question for you, and I genuinely want you to think about this. How many times have you caught yourself rereading an old conversation thread trying to figure out where things shifted? If that number is higher than 1, you're in the right place. Drop your honest answer in the comments. You are absolutely not alone in this. Now let's get into the psychology, because this is where everything starts to make sense. In the 1960s, a British psychiatrist named John Bowlby proposed something that would fundamentally change how we understand human relationships. He called it attachment theory. The core idea is simple but profound. From the time we're infants, the way our caregivers respond to our needs shapes how we learn to connect with other people for the rest of our lives. Mary Ainsworth, a researcher who built on Bowlby's work, identified distinct attachment styles through a landmark experiment called the strange situation. What she found was this: not everyone learns to attach in the same way. Some children grew up with caregivers who were consistently present and responsive, and they developed what we call secure attachment. They learned that connection is safe. That people come back. That love doesn't disappear without warning. But others weren't so lucky. Some children had caregivers who were inconsistent, sometimes warm and engaged, sometimes emotionally unavailable or distracted. These children never knew what to expect. So they learned to stay hypervigilant, to watch for signs, to cling when connection was available because they never knew when it would vanish. These people developed what we call anxious attachment. And then there were children whose caregivers responded to emotional needs with discomfort or withdrawal, either dismissing feelings or being outright cold. These children learned to suppress their need for closeness entirely, to protect themselves by not needing at all. These people developed avoidant attachment. Here's what makes modern dating feel like a minefield. Anxiously attached people and avoidantly attached people are extraordinarily drawn to each other. It's not a coincidence. It's chemistry rooted in childhood. The anxious person craves closeness, and the avoidant's initial warmth feels like the safe harbor they've always been looking for. The avoidant person is drawn to the anxious person's emotional depth and intensity, at least until that intensity starts to feel like too much. So what happens? The anxious person leans in. The avoidant pulls back. The anxious person panics and leans in harder. The avoidant feels overwhelmed and retreats further. And both people are locked in a push-pull cycle that neither of them fully understands, recreating the emotional patterns they learned before they were old enough to choose. It feels magnetic because, in a painful way, it feels familiar. But here's what most people don't realize. The reason you can't just logic your way out of this has nothing to do with willpower. It has to do with brain chemistry. Specifically, with something called intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful psychological forces ever studied. In the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something remarkable while working with rats and lever systems. When rats received a reward every single time they pressed a lever, they'd press it casually, and stop pressing when the reward stopped coming. But when the reward came randomly, sometimes on the first press, sometimes on the 10th, sometimes not at all, the rats became obsessed. They pressed the lever compulsively, relentlessly, even when no reward was coming. Sound familiar? This is the exact mechanism behind slot machines. The gambling industry has known about this for decades, and they've built an entire billion-dollar empire on it. And predictability doesn't diminish desire, it amplifies it. And your brain responds to an inconsistent romantic partner the exact same way it responds to a slot machine. Every hot phase, every warm text, every amazing date, every moment of genuine connection, triggers a dopamine spike in your brain. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. And when that reward comes unpredictably, your brain actually produces more dopamine in anticipation of it than it would from something consistent and reliable. The uncertainty itself becomes the drug. This is why checking your phone after days of silence feels like pulling a slot machine lever. This is why you feel a rush when they come back. This is why you remember the good times in vivid, almost cinematic detail while the silence and anxiety blur into the background. And then layer on top of that the sunk cost fallacy, the cognitive bias that tells you the more time, energy, and emotion you've already invested in something, the more worth it is to keep going. I can't walk away now. We've been through too much. I've already put so much into this. Your brain is doing accounting on a relationship your heart can't balance. Plus idealization, the tendency to remember the best version of a person and treat that version as the real version, even when the actual pattern tells a different story. You are not addicted to who they are. You are addicted to who they are in their warmest moments. Let me paint a picture for you. Emma is 28, a marketing professional living in Austin, Texas. She's driven, emotionally intelligent, has a great group of friends. She downloads Bumble after a rough year, mostly just to see what's out there. She matches with someone, let's call him Marcus. First message, she's not even that into it. But he's persistent in the best way. Curious. Witty. He remembers details from their conversations days later. Their first 2 dates are remarkable. He's present in a way that feels rare. He talks about his family, his dreams, things that matter. She finds herself thinking about him between work calls. She cancels plans with a girlfriend because he asks her to dinner last minute, and she says yes without hesitation. Then, after a night that felt like a turning point, he goes quiet. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. She rechecks their last conversation like she might have missed something. She drafts 3 different follow-up messages and deletes them all. She asks her friends what they think, and they give her conflicting advice that only spirals her further. She starts performing at work below her standard. She catches herself in a meeting thinking about the last thing he said and has to ask someone to repeat a question. He texts back on day 4 like it's nothing. Warm. A little flirtatious. She feels a rush of relief so intense it almost makes her feel sick, and she hates herself a little for how good it feels. This continues for 2 months. Emma gains nothing. She loses something more important. She starts to lose her sense of self. She starts measuring her value by whether or not he responds. And that is the real cost of this cycle. So let's talk about the signs, because if you're in this, you might not even see how deep it's gone. You know you are trapped when you spend more mental energy analyzing someone's texts than you do on things that actually matter to you. When a cold face, their silence, their distance, physically raises your anxiety in a way that's hard to explain to people who haven't felt it. When you've started declining invitations or letting friendships slide because you're emotionally unavailable to anyone other than this one person who is, ironically, emotionally unavailable to you. The long-term effects go beyond heartache. Chronic exposure to this cycle elevates cortisol, your body's stress hormone, in ways that genuinely damage your physical health. It erodes your self-esteem in small, incremental ways that are hard to trace until you look back and realize you don't recognize the voice inside your head anymore. It trains you toward codependency. And it makes it harder and harder to trust consistent, secure people, because their reliability starts to feel boring instead of beautiful. But here's the part we've been building to. The part about what you actually do. The first step is self-awareness, and I want you to be honest with yourself about this. Journaling your attachment patterns isn't about navel-gazing, it's about building a map. Write down how you feel in the hot phases versus the cold ones. Notice the gap. Notice what you're willing to accept, and ask yourself whether you'd advise your best friend to accept the same. That clarity is more powerful than any conversation you'll have with the person treating you this way. Second, learn what's called reparenting. This means becoming the consistent, reassuring presence for yourself that you may not have had growing up. When your anxiety spikes because someone hasn't texted back, you pause. You remind yourself, out loud if you need to, that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on someone's response time. It sounds simple. It is not easy. But it's the foundation of real healing. Third, start paying attention to security early. Secure partners aren't people who seem perfect, they're people who are consistent. They follow through on small things. They're emotionally available without being performative about it. They're not more exciting at the beginning, but they don't disappear, either. If you've been mistaking inconsistency for passion, this reframe will shift everything. Fourth, learn to use your words before the pattern spirals. A simple, calm script. Hey, I've noticed some distance lately and I want to check in. Are we on the same page? Not accusatory. Not desperate. Just honest. How someone responds to that directness tells you more about compatibility than months of analyzing their texting patterns ever could. And finally, and I want you to hear this, the most empowered thing you can do is build the internal framework to walk away from patterns that diminish you. Not in anger. Not in ultimatums. Simply by deciding that your emotional health is not negotiable. That decision is available to you right now, regardless of where you are in the cycle. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we've covered today. You are not weak for getting hooked by hot and cold behavior. You are human, and your brain is responding to one of the most potent psychological mechanisms that exists. But understanding the mechanism is how you stop being controlled by it. Anxious attachment is not a flaw. It's a wound. And wounds can heal, with awareness, with intention, and with a commitment to stop recreating old pain in new relationships. Consistent love isn't a luxury. It's not something reserved for other people or for when you're fixed enough. It is your birthright. And the first step toward it is deciding, right now, that you're worth showing up for. If this video hit something real for you today, if you recognized yourself in Emma's story, or in that 2 a.m. phone screen moment, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And I'd love for you to drop a comment below sharing your biggest hot and cold experience. Not because it's easy to relive, but because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to feel less alone today. Subscribe to Psychology of Relationships if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because next time, we are going deep on what it actually looks like to date from a place of secure attachment. What it feels like to receive consistent love, and more importantly, how to believe you deserve it. I'll see you there.